This is Earth Movers
with Allison Mariella Desir, Stefanie Flippin, and Verna Nesbegay Volker.
A trail podcast reclaiming the narrative.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Earth Movers, a trail podcast reclaiming the narrative. Today we have Schuyler Hall on as our guest. Schuyler just might be one of the most interesting people in the trail and ultra running world. Schuyler is a running broadcaster with Mountain Outpost, which for our listeners was like the original trail and ultra running media group, which was founded in 2016. Schuyler has been bringing you all live coverage of races like Western States 100, Hard Rock 100, Black Canyon, Javelina, to name a few. Schuyler is also a runner himself, a father and husband, a teacher, track and cross country coach, a DJ. He's also the writer of the Love Outpost for Ultra Running Magazine, where Schuyler gives advice on love, dating, and relationships in the world of ultra running. And he was one of the first running-specific YouTubers who I personally started watching way back in the day. Schuyler, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thanks for having me. Yeah, when you put it all laid out like that, it makes it sound like I have zero free time, which I feel that way, but when somebody else validates that, it's nice.
Yeah. Well, I certainly didn't want to leave any of those details out. Like I said, Schuyler is one of the most interesting people, in my opinion, in our sport. Before we dive into our conversation today, I did want to give a brief shout out to Ultra Running for being Earth Movers presenting sponsor for season 2. Ultra was our presenting sponsor for season 1, and we are so grateful for their support, just helping elevate conversations like these, and really just allowing us the freedom to get these conversations out to the world. You can check them out at ultrarunning.com. They offer free 30-day returns. Try out their shoes, the original zero drop trail and road shoes. So thank you, Ultra. Schuyler, welcome. It's so lovely to connect with you. I feel like I am more used to you being on the other side of things, interviewing athletes. I think you and Jamil interviewed me a handful of years ago at some sort of race. But yeah, it's so wonderful to connect with you. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Life is good. 2026 is definitely not boring. We have things on the horizon left and right, and you laid out all the different weird ways that I stay busy. So definitely not bored, but super excited to be spending some time with you.
Yeah, awesome. I do want to thank you too. Before I hit record here, we are, it's February 12th, so we are just a couple days out from a huge trail and ultra running weekend. We have Black Canyon on the docket, where Schuyler will be traveling out to help run the broadcast. So for those of us listening, this will come out after Black Canyon, but I'm sure the broadcast will go off without a hitch and be another huge success. So.
We hope so.
And
if it isn't, and you hear this, I'm sorry, we tried.
No, I'm so impressed with how far things have come. I think I speak for a lot of people where we're like, oh my gosh, like now we can see all the runners, like drones, like the footage has just improved so much. And you, my good friend Leah Yingling, all of you guys at Mountain Outpost, Zach Marion, are just absolute pros at it. So we appreciate all of the work that you do to bring the sport to life. But yeah, I mean, before we dive further and further into things, Schuyler, I wanted to just get to know you a little bit more, and just bring a bit of your background for our listeners. Where did you grow up? What got you into running? What does your background in the sport look like? What brought you from young Schuyler to Schuyler, the father, husband, dad, teacher, all the things?
Yeah, you can say old Schuyler. That would be accurate. So I originally from San Francisco Bay Area, born and raised in Hayward, California. So East Bay, heart of the Bay Area, geographically speaking, and culturally. You fight me on that if you want. Okay. I got into running the way that many folks do, sort of like you're running around in PE, and then somebody's like, you should try running cross country or track. Yeah. So my 8th grade teacher was like, you actually enjoy running the mile, go do this thing in high school. And sure enough, I just followed that into college. And then it wasn't until I moved to Arizona that I picked up like sort of the trail running side of the house, linked up with Aravaipa and their group runs. I was just a groupie. And now that we're 14 years later, I know I'm highly immersed in the space as well. So excited to be able to give back in any number of ways. To the degree that I still run, I try, but a lot of it is on that community side now. Now that I'm back here in the Bay Area, trying to elevate the game of the folks directly around me, and then where we can do it for the international audience, we do that as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. When did you, just for my knowledge too, when did you relocate to the Bay Area from Phoenix?
2016. Yeah. So you alluded to sort of the origin story of Mountain Outpost, and there were the original challenge videos of Jamil and I just doing the worst things on the internet.
I'm going to interject here. When I emailed you to have this conversation, I had to dig through like the bowels of like the internet. I specifically remember watching a YouTube video of you guys doing, I think it was like segments. It was like, I want to say on Camelback, and you guys were like doing a downhill segment that Jim Walmsley had. It was something like that.
Yeah. So Chasing Walmsley was that video.
Yes.
That was... we attempted 3 different segments, if I remember correctly. One of them was, up Camelback. And then the one that we ended up being successful at was a half-mile downhill segment.
Yes, I remember
just
that.
Completely ripping it.
On a brutally hot day, it seemed like. I mean, it's
also Phoenix in the summer, right?
Yes.
Like we didn't start filming those episodes until late April, early May. And all of them were filmed basically, after 10 a.m. So 100 degrees, just doing absurd things. But we were young and we didn't have children or liabilities, so we could get away with it.
Love that. Sorry, I interrupted you there. But I had asked you when you relocated to the Bay Area. I alluded to 2016. You helped co-found, or you did found Mountain Outpost, and helped honestly put Aravaipa running on the map. Could you tell us more about those early days? What prompted you to found Mountain Outpost?
Yeah, I mean, I can't take a ton of credit for that. It's more like I was in the right place at the right time with the right energy. So Jamil and Haley Pollock, who was the marketing sort of CEO mind of Aravaipa at the time, had this idea, and we're like, we want to stand this up. And it just so happened that I had started DJing a few of the races that Aravaipa was putting on. They're like, you seem crazy enough to get on board. And I just said yes without ever actually hearing the ideas whatsoever. And so, the first one we did was Drop Bag Challenge, apropos of nothing. I had no idea what we signed up for. And we ripped out the first 10 episodes in like 7 weeks or something like that. We were just like putting ourselves through the worst physical and mental space. So it was a flash in the pan. We had a good time. And then immediately after that is when I moved to the Bay Area, because I accepted a new job with the feds. So, and from there has been the evolution of Mountain Outpost. That's how Mountain Outhouse News sort of had to happen, because Jamil needed to fill the void. And then obviously it's now spiraled into this entire media side, where the broadcasts and live streams for the races have really taken shape. So, to watch that evolution over the last literally decade now has been absolutely absurd, but very excited to have been a part of it.
Yeah, definitely. So I did also want to mention, my husband and I were 100% two of the people out there who purchased Run Steep, Get High shirts, which was part of the merch that you and Jamil and everyone at Mountain Outpost had put out. I believe from watching and listening to you guys way back then, you were kind of like the stay low portion of Run Steep, Get High. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And is that still the case for you?
Like from a complete theoretical perspective, yes, I will stay as low as possible, especially compared to Jamil. So the Run Flat, Stay Low originated from me trolling Jamil. Okay. That's how it really happened. We were filming Lake Sonoma 50. And I was like out there with a camera, and I was like, I'm gonna be Jamil. I'm gonna act like him in his vlog, as he was getting ready for all the absurd videos that he was putting out at the time. So I was like, I'm gonna do that too, and I just didn't delete the files. And Michael Carson, who was the editor of all the Mountain Outpost stuff at the time, he took them and just cobbled together this this first vlog that was Run Flat, Stay Low.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, well, I guess we're here now. I'm going to keep it going. So,
Okay.
so that's why the armadillo was
Yes.
against the
Yep.
ram, and it was
Yep.
just absolutely absurd. So, I'm not putting out content under
Right.
Run Flat, Stay Low at the moment. Like
Yeah.
you listed all the things. I just don't have time to also video
Yeah.
edit, and
Yeah.
my life is, I think it's relatively boring, but yeah, if you're going to see me racing, I'm definitely not racing hard rock. Like I'm gonna race something much more low, much more flat, much more accessible.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
We love accessible. Well, that's a perfect segue into, for our listeners, it's obviously 2026 right now. We're like almost mid-February, but last month there was a recent Instagram trend where everyone flashed back a decade ago to 2016. You shared, you flashed back to becoming a world record holder that year. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, which is great. What you want your teacher to have been a world record holder for. So I set the world record at across the years for the beer half marathon. So folks are usually familiar with the beer mile, but essentially in that model, you drink a beer, run a quarter mile. So 4 beers, 4 laps. Great. The half marathon was a beer every mile. So 13 beers, 13.1 miles.
Oh my gosh.
At the time, across the years, was on a 1.05 mile loop or whatever. So it worked out perfectly. And yeah, just like ripped one in 1:48:43.
Dang.
It was that's how you know I'm a teacher.
Yes. I was going to say all good.
It's like, we're here at school. So I ran the half marathon at 1:48:43. Just living my best life, didn't black out, had a good time, great crew around me.
Yeah.
And set the world record at the time. Took almost a decade for somebody to legitimately take it down, because same rules, you can't throw up or anything like that. So yeah, not the greatest example for youth that I then like immediately turned to like supporting after that, but it sort of just like highlights the things you can get away with when you're young, and just taking a risk and having a good adventure.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if I like wanted to take a stab at that, I don't think I physically could. That's a lot of carbonation and just liquid in general. So, okay, thank you so much for sharing about that. Because even I was like, what did Schuyler set back then? I was like, what distance was it? So I appreciate you sharing. Well, that's also another perfect segue into you recently made a career pivot and are now a teacher. We just heard the bell ring, probably signaling a shift in periods there. But yeah, you shared a post last fall where I just want to briefly quote you, because when I saw you share this, it really was touching to me. So I would love to dive further into it. But you said, sometimes you can change the system from within. Sometimes you have to empower others to do it. Time to go teach these kids some critical thinking skills, let them know how the government works from the inside, and hope they use the power for good. Gosh, can you just share a little bit more about what prompted you to go into education? Did becoming a father play a role in this decision for you in any way? Really anything you want to share about this most recent career journey for you?
Yeah, so I began coaching cross country and track in the spring of 2017.
Okay.
So I'd moved back to the Bay Area, took a job with Health and Human Services, so into the federal government from my time at Arizona, and just like as a side gig, got coerced into coaching at my alma mater. So I was back at the school that I graduated from, like working with students who were going through the same program that I had gone through. And for the better part of 9 years, I was managing both of those lives at HHS and coaching. And for any number of reasons, it just looked like my time was done at HHS. I'd accomplished much of what I wanted to do. And I had been kicking around the idea of going and getting the teaching credential and ultimately pivoting to education for years at this point, probably 3 or 4 years. Like I kind of knew this is where I wanted to end up. Just wasn't sure exactly when the timeline was going to take shape. And just sort of the perfect storm of events happened where it was like, now is probably the optimal time to leave the federal government or leave public service and on that health and public health side and transition to education. So it just made sense to sort of leave public service in the health and public health side and make the official move to education. And, because I'm a father, there was a lot of consideration around my like quality of life and like where I'm putting my mental space. When you have to worry about the entirety of every natural or man-made disaster for the entire Pacific Rim that weighs on you, especially after COVID, after any number of other things that occurred over that 9-year span. So it's nice to be able to just like span of control, focus on my family, my classrooms, and just sort of feel like I have a more tangible sense where I can build up skills and empower those to then maybe go to government themselves or go into whatever industry they want and really make a change that is in the best for themselves and for their greater community.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you sharing. Can you remind me, what grade do you teach?
High school. So
Okay.
This year I have juniors and seniors,
Okay.
Which is great because I can look at the seniors and be like, the real world is coming at you very fast, and
Yeah.
really set them up for success. But high school is a blessing and a curse. I'm very
Yeah.
excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to you. I feel like you are doing the Lord's work, working with teenagers. If I could ask, what is I grew up in San Diego, but so, I'm like fairly familiar with like the different regions in California, but predominantly, what is the demographic at the high school that you're teaching at?
Yeah, it's funny because it's actually very similar to where I used to coach. And
Okay.
typical. Tardy bell. So it's very similar. Heavily Hispanic and Asian
Okay.
communities. 75% free and reduced lunch. So
Okay.
Not very high on the socioeconomic scale, but
Mhm.
with every community in California, they're bringing a number of other assets to the table that we can play off of. So motivated kids
Mhm.
that are very diverse, bring a
Mhm.
lot of backgrounds and culture to the room,
Mhm.
and we just have an absolute blast in these social studies classes.
Okay, cool. That was going to be my next question too. I was like, I believe you're in the social studies realm, but that's awesome. Um, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you did you start full time teaching this school year, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was, from the time I left federal service to standing and delivering in front of the classroom, was about 4 months.
Okay.
So yeah, so still working officially on like the teaching credential and being fully cleared and everything,
Mhm.
but they don't just let everybody be a teacher. Just let
Sure.
me just go ahead and nip that in the bud right now. I'm
Yeah.
still working officially on a lot of those things, but
Got it.
luckily with my professional background, having a
Mhm.
master's,
Yeah. I'm sure.
it was
Yeah.
easy for me to step in and
Mhm.
sort of contribute immediately without fear in front of 100 something students every day staring you down and trying to check your
Yeah.
ego.
Oh my gosh. How many kids do you have in each of your classes?
Averages somewhere around 30 for each
Okay.
of my classes. So we're capped at 35 per class, which is
Mhm.
nice.
Mhm.
Makes it a little bit more manageable, but these 35 large personalities of a bunch of 16 to 18-year-olds, a lot happens in here. It's a good time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like I said, I truly feel that you're doing the Lord's work. I just feel like your students are so fortunate to have you. Um, so I'm going to take a moment just to take a brief pause here, and again, just drop in and thank Ultra Running for their continued support of Earth Movers. They have just been providing us a platform in order to have these conversations and just really going all in on holistic support. So we're extremely grateful to them. Again, you can check them out at ultrarunning.com, where they offer free 30-day returns. And again, they are the original zero drop trail and road running shoes with options now with some 4mm drop shoes as well. So again, thank you so much, Ultra Running. Okay, and we're back. And I do want to sort of segue from your new career as a teacher and then chat about the upcoming documentary that you were just featured in, shot by good friend Patty O'Leary, or directed by Patty O'Leary, called Dipsea Generations. You are a featured main character, right? In this main character energy here, we love that. And the documentary, right, follows 5 young runners from across the Bay Area as they take on the oldest and perhaps the most unique trail race in the United States, the iconic Dipsea race. Um, Now, you guys have shared, this is the tagline for the documentary, that trail running is disappointingly homogenous, yet the Bay Area is home to a diverse population and some of the best trails in the United States. And again, like for our listeners who are not familiar with the Dipsea race, it has a unique handicap start that makes it just sort of one of those races that's up for grabs across ages and different categories, right? So yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about your involvement in like the coaching aspect, what it was like filming this. For our listeners too, I do want to point out Dipsea Generations, the documentary, is currently not widely available to the public just yet, but it is touring on the Trail Running Film Festival circuit. I will include links to the Trail Running Film Festival circuit so our listeners can see the different locations where the documentary will be showed. And I spoke with Patty and Tony DiPasquale, who said that likely the documentary should be available to the public in early June, if that sounds correct. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about your involvement in the film.
Absolutely. So my involvement goes back about a year and a half.
Okay.
Patty reached out and had this idea for the project and was trying to just find other folks in the East Bay. And the East Bay, for those not from the area, incorporates your Oakland, Hayward, Berkeley, like that section across the Bay Bridge. So he was trying to figure out who he could link up with to try to get them involved, who might have athletes that might be good to feature. Threw him some ideas, and ultimately he sort of came back around to me and was like, well, you coach high school, so like, do you have an athlete or two that might want to get involved? And I had the perfect candidate in mind. Didn't even really ask her. I was just like, we're gonna do this, and she was like, okay, if you say so. Which I love a good coachable, compliant student athlete. So, the Dipsea is on an iconic trail in the Marin Headlands, which, there are any number of other videos or races that have gone off up there. If you remember the old, like, North Face 50, if you're looking at Big Alta, like, it's all in that area. So, it's what a lot of people think of when they think of Bay Area trail running, yet so many individuals, especially underrepresented youth, never even know that it exists. A few years back, I took my track team to the Golden Gate Bridge to like run across it, and it was the first time that almost all of them had ever even seen the Golden Gate Bridge in person. Wow. And we live 20 miles away.
Right.
So, it's the notion that trails and these running spaces are there. We can literally see them, but they're not necessarily accessible. That doesn't mean we can actually get to them.
Yeah.
And so this project was an opportunity to bring youth who would otherwise not have the opportunity to be a part of this community into this very iconic race where anybody can win. It can be a Diana Fitzpatrick who is, a like masters athlete who's very successful. It can be a Patty who's won the thing last year. It was a 19-year-old female who won. Like, anybody can win the Dipsea. So, it was a great pleasure to coach one of the athletes, Karina. She was one of my seniors. She was my captain. She was the only girl on our team for one of the seasons when she first joined, especially right after COVID. It was just not a great time for many people to join sports. Yeah. So I got to see her flourish over the course of 4 years and build our entire women's cross country and track program. And then to see her literally the week after graduation go race the Dipsea and just like, transition and sort of have this moment of, breaking out of the high school, cross country and track scene and be like, now you're on your own and you're out there troubleshooting on the trails and having an absolute blast, and you hate it and everything's painful, but you're smiling the whole way through. To watch that whole metamorphosis happen was truly amazing. And, the other two coaches that participated with their kids, we got to see that same sort of flight occur. And I'm so excited with how the documentary captures that, like, race day, but also the entire origin story of these athletes and who they are as people, how their families operate, and what it means to be underrepresented in the Bay Area and try to find your foothold in this trail running community that we all claim is very open and accessible, but we all know, or maybe we don't all know, but a good number of us, have the sense that like we could be doing more. So I think this does a great job of laying that out. And I'm very happy that people are getting to see that in film and have these conversations of how this impacts their own local communities as well.
Yeah. I know, I know I can't ask you to share like too much, about the film until it's widely available. But the other, you mentioned your specific athlete, Karina, was a senior at the time. And this covered the 2024 Dipsea race. Is that correct? Or was it 2020?
2025.
Oh, 2025. Okay, got it. Now, the other four athletes that are covered in the documentary, were they also like high school level, or were some of them even younger?
Oh, definitely younger. Karina was
Okay, cool.
the only high schooler,
Mm,
and then the others were, I believe Daniel was maybe the next youngest, but basically like 12 to 15, and
hmm
then Karina was definitely the oldest, the shortest, but
mm.
the oldest. Yeah.
Okay, as a 5'1.5" female, I love hearing this type of representation. um, that's incredible. Do you and the other coaches, are you still following the young athletes' journeys in running, and maybe even like, I don't want to say like professionally. I know they're still quite young, but just perhaps Karina's collegiate running journey. Are you guys still involved?
Yeah, so for the other four, they're still involved with their respective programs.
Hmm.
Three of them were with or are with the Dipsea Kids, which is an
Okay.
entire foundation that's
Hmm.
centered around trying to sort of recreate on the Dipsea Trail itself, in which
Hmm.
this race obviously happens on.
Hmm.
And then Daniel is still hanging out with Jose down in that Gilroy area,
Mm.
working his way towards high school and being able to be a part of that sort of more traditional running uh,
Sure.
sort of pipeline that we're used to.
Yep.
And
Hmm.
then, yeah, Karina not officially running
Hmm.
in college, at least not for her collegiate program.
Hmm.
But, she's having the fun transition that many of us do, which is
Yeah.
what does it look like to run when you have life responsibilities around you?
Yeah.
You
Right.
don't have a dedicated 2 hour practice block. You need to
Yeah.
figure out how this fits in around your work schedule, your class schedule, and all of that. So,
Hmm.
so she's working through that right now. And,
Hmm.
we had a conversation last month, I guess at this point, saying, hey, there's a world where you're back in this Dipsea race. Like you were right on the bubble
Hmm.
of getting invitational and getting an automatic entry back in. So we need to start base building and making sure you're in position to be successful come June. And if
Mm.
it's not the Dipsea, what is your next goal? Because
Yeah.
uh, we're not going to waste the joy that you get from being outside and like exploring yourself and your capabilities. We're not
Hmm.
going to lose that just because life has beaten you down with work and school and everything. So
Yeah.
so trying to make sure that she's still tapping in and having fun and touching grass and doing
Yeah.
all the things that we hope
Yeah.
that running brings for youth and frankly for all of us.
Yeah. For all of us, like a lifelong, right? Not just at a temporary point in our lives. Um, well, I really appreciate you sharing that, and just everything that you just shared too. Just goes to show what an incredible coach you are, as well, for your athletes and your students. So I appreciate you sharing. Yeah, I mean, also like as you were just talking through some of the athletes' journeys, I can imagine the documentary is also coming out at a really like poignant and important time too. Just what again, as our listeners know, like as one of your co-hosts, I never hesitate to acknowledge that like everything is political at this point. Running is inherently political because Skylar, to your point about you know, driving some of your students or taking some of your students out to run across the Golden Gate. And you said many of them, that was like the first time they're even seeing it due to accessibility and all the other facets, right? That come into play. And I'm really excited for this documentary to come out at this point in time because, we saw things shift and sort of build in 2020. But I think that sort of momentum it was kind of lost for a bit, and and just how things are, you have experience like at the federal level as well. And one of our goals here is to ensure that like diversity, inclusion, improving accessibility isn't those aren't buzzwords, right? That these aren't like trends that like come and go. It's
Right.
something that like we have to keep our foot on the gas with at all times. So I deeply appreciate the work that you, Patty, Tony, and Nicole, and everyone involved in the film has been doing. So I really look forward to that coming out and making its way across the trail running film circuit. Um, But yeah, I mean, we so often don't see trail running films center youth athletes. I feel like, most of the content out there, it's centered on the pros, or at least, or like adult amateurs, right, making content, let alone youth athletes of color. We just really don't see that in the trail running world. So I wanted to ask you, how has your involvement and mentoring of these athletes and your students shaped who you are as a runner and a human? And what advice can you impart to us, listeners, others, about your work in this space? I know this is kind of like a three-pronged question here, but what do you hope to see transpire and evolve in the future of the sport?
We see so often the narrative that you just takes a pair of shoes to get out,
Yeah.
but folks won't explore their own capabilities if they don't have some sort of like motivation, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic. Some folks, you have that extrinsic motivation, like I'm trying to go to college, I'm trying to get a scholarship, but trail running is not going to be how that's found. Then you have folks who they just need to explore, they just need them time. And I've come to find over my decade of coaching that everybody has their why, but they don't necessarily know what it is quite yet when you're dealing with youth. They might have been told that they need to show up, their friends are out there, but you don't come back to the second or third or fourth practice just because your friends are there. You don't come back after a hard workout just because your friends are there. Like at some point, something clicks where you have to recognize what the benefit is for you and understand if I'm going to keep putting myself through the paces here, why am I doing this? And watching that evolution, especially when you're dealing with first year or second year runners, you see them growing and saying you don't want running to ever be your sole identity. That's never a healthy place, especially for youth. But when you see how that springboards confidence, that can then be, it moves from situational confidence of this is me on the track or on the course to now I can carry that confidence to the classroom or to my interpersonal relationships. When you see that expansion, that's the aha moment as a coach where you're now I've done something right. Because even in Karina's case, she's not running in college, but I can hope that she's taken all the life lessons of troubleshooting, critical analysis, working on the fly to figure out how you fit into this larger picture. She can now use that in the entire expanse of her on-campus collegiate experience. We also don't do a great job of talking about soft skills in the running space, and yet we all want to hang out at a run club or be social, but we don't ever actually talk about how do we build that comfort, or how do we just approach people and have that conversation and open up and be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And to your point, when we talk about issues of diversity and inclusion, we're really good at saying it in buzzwords, or we can write a nice caption, but to actually have the authentic conversation face to face is difficult. And so I've appreciated as a coach, and now getting to do so officially in the classroom, is forcing students to explore that, to have those conversations, to be hey, you're going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. Your goal is to understand your role in this, understand your thoughts and feelings, and be able to express them. And if we can take that skill set that we it's built into the academic structure of youth, if we can just figure out how we can leverage that in the professional sense or as adults, life would be a lot.
I know, right?
Maybe not easier, but it would at least be more transparent. We understand where people are coming from. Being in this space, for a while there, when Mountain Outpost really took off, I was one of 5 Black trail runners that people knew.
I know. I've been wanting to flag this,
which is fine, but it was a reality, and obviously I've moved as a Black man throughout my entire life, so I'm used to kind of being oh yeah, I'm the one, I'm here, I'm ready to represent the group. But it opened up some opportunities where people would come up or just even message us and be hey, I don't have a large Black community where I live, but I want to explore these questions, especially in 2020, we got DMs, and Jamil would just be hey, this is for you, and would send it my way, and I would just reach out to people let's have a talk about it. So,
Yeah.
I'm happy that some people in the trail running space, in the adult trail running space,
Mm-hmm.
like have that energy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that the youth that I've worked with have carried that forward. But now I'm trying to figure out how do we bridge, how do we bridge what we teach the youth and have more folks in the trail running space be able to have these conversations without it instantly becoming divisive or toxic
Yeah.
or
Right.
polarized.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was obviously nodding along with everything that you just mentioned there. A lot of common themes and topics that I've had conversations with other guests on here, with my co-hosts, Allison Desir, and Verna Volker as well. But yeah, I mean, just your mention too of like just that clear communication and how to have those conversations like face to face. And for you, you're facilitating these conversations in the classroom, which I think like it goes back to what you shared. It's like you are doing such important work by encouraging and modeling for your students how to do this and how to sit in some discomfort versus like we know how. I always wonder, right, like even on some of the more recent, with all the ice activity going on in Minneapolis right now, I believe outside put out or their umbrella put out a piece where they interviewed one of my co-hosts here at Earth Movers, Verna Volker, and just the comments. I was like, I can't even like. I want to defend her. I want to get really angry and be like, what the hell? Like what? Like why would you sit here? Like you could have just scrolled right on by, right? And you chose like you. That was certainly a choice, right? To make these types of comments that are just riddled with ignorance and racism and divisiveness. But then you then you just have to realize that it's so much easier to do that when you're behind a screen and behind like your phone. And I always wonder if you were in person face to face, like would you even have the courage to say
Oh,
these things?
guaranteed not.
Yeah.
Guaranteed not. Like the number of in like we're not gonna like call specific
Sure.
people out,
Sure.
but the number of things that like I've seen people post online, and then I will run into them at a
Yeah.
race or in some sort
Right.
of running environment,
Mm-hmm.
and like I know they won't say it to my face, but I might have been part of the demographic or the
Sure.
group that they
Yep.
were dunking on. It's like, but you won't say that to me, and you're gonna be nice to me to my face.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
be 100 with it. Like
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
going to
Right.
say it
Yes.
behind the screen, even with your name there, like say
Yeah.
it to our face. And
Yeah.
that it is significantly easier with technology, especially when
Mm-hmm.
you can be anonymous, to get away with those things.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean you're advancing the conversation. That just
Yeah.
you're just spewing. And what
Right.
we need to get to the point where you can have some of these difficult conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it doesn't have to be like these large scale political things. Like,
Right. Right.
we're talking about mental health in the trail running space. I'm like,
Right.
what does it mean to just like
Mm-hmm.
be accessible? You want to talk about public lands? Like, by
Mm-hmm.
and large, trail runners will support that, but like there might be some nuance we can explore. It's like
Mm-hmm.
we need to figure out how do we just hold a conversation that where there's not 100% agreement,
Mm-hmm.
but we can walk through the nuance and explore that and walk out. It doesn't mean we have to walk out agreeing, but we can
Mm-hmm.
walk out understanding a little bit more about those around us and
Yeah.
the world around us. And
Mm-hmm.
then the way I always frame it for students is, if you're in an art class and you pour one color into a bowl and you pour another color, eventually you pour all these different colors and it just kind of turns black,
Mm-hmm.
because everything's mixed together. That's kind of where we need to get in the world, where like
Yeah.
everybody's bringing their little color, their spirit, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually it's all going to mix together into this like black mob of like, we've learned everything we can and we have this mix. We all need to be black on the inside. We got
Love
to get as many of
Yeah.
the spirit cultural
Yeah.
colors together and try to have that diverse understanding. Again, doesn't mean we have to agree with it, but we
Yeah.
need to have that like a lens of like, I
Mm-hmm.
can at least see how other people approach this topic,
Yeah.
this issue, this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great example. I'm curious, and again, I hate to sound like someone because I myself don't have children yet, but just in your role, like as a teacher, working with teenagers on a daily basis, do you feel like this next generation is like shine further away from like social media and like that aspect of things, and are they kind of working towards getting more comfortable with the more in-person conversations, or do you see the opposite? I don't know.
It's I I think those are two parallel but different
Mm,
lanes. I think
mhm,
there are a good number of students who realize that they shouldn't be on social media as much as they are, but they
Okay.
don't necessarily have the skill set to
Yeah.
then have those same social interactions in person. So like there's an awareness, but they don't
Yeah.
know like what the other off ramp is.
I
And
see.
you
Yeah,
you
that
sort of
makes
need to like,
sense.
deconflict that a bit. And,
Mhm.
you know, as a teacher, I can force group work. I can be like, hey,
Yeah.
you want to work on your own and
Mhm.
listen to your headphones in class, but like, no, I'm in
Yeah,
charge.
sure.
Like I'm a
Yeah.
benevolent dictator or whatever.
Mhm.
But I only see the students for 1 to 2 hours a day,
Yeah,
and
sure.
that sort of ecosystem needs to be built elsewhere. So,
Yeah, good point.
but it's there. Like there
Mhm.
is a hunger to have social connection, but they just don't necessarily know how to do that without having a brick in their hand to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, again, I really appreciate you sharing and diving into, all of these topics that, like to your point, can be uncomfortable to even chat through. I'm sure. To your point, like you mentioned about seeing, comments online that may have been, directed towards, the Black demographic, and then you're like, hey, like, would you feel comfortable saying that to my face or having a in real life conversation about it? I've certainly run into that myself too at different races where I'm like, you're so kind and you're like introducing yourself and you're wanting to chat about like my training and your training. But then it's like, but I just can't shake some of the things I've seen you share on social media. And it's just hard, right? Because you don't want to be like, well, I don't want to like put this wall up and not interact with you. But, um, it's a question of like, okay, well, what about like shared values here? And I think it is important to just acknowledge, because I feel like we hear this a lot where you see different folks in the space, especially like the trail running world. I feel like where they're like, it's trail running is just different. Like,
Mhm.
no, like everyone here is just here to like run their own race. And like, we can leave politics out of it. And I think one of the first steps is acknowledging that like any group, right? Any group of humans, any sport is just a microcosm of the broader picture. And I think we're doing everyone a disservice by kind of pretending like trail running isn't,
Correct. Yeah,
so anyhow.
yeah, you are not just your race results, right?
Right.
Like you are not your ITRA score, ultra sign up rank. Like there's
Yeah.
more to you, and that
Yeah.
when we understand the intersectional nature of
Yeah.
individuals, that's when those are some of the best stories. Like even as we follow
Hmm.
pros,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, you're a pro who's working full time, or
Hmm.
you're in these training camps with your spouse, or like,
Hmm.
oh, you're a new parent, and we have all these mothers coming back to racing and being even better than they were before. Like we love that those blended stories,
Yeah.
and yet when it's something that is more quote unquote difficult or political to
Yeah.
talk about, all of a sudden we don't want to talk about the intersectional nature of
Right.
us as people. Like
Yeah.
we got to own the whole space, and
Yeah.
again, we don't have to seek to agree. We just have to
Hmm.
seek to understand and be like,
Yeah.
okay, heard. Like that's a viewpoint.
Hmm.
I might not ascribe to it,
Yeah.
but I can, if you can walk me through your process,
Yeah.
then at least I understand where you're coming from,
Hmm.
and in good faith,
Yeah.
and we just move on from there.
Yeah, I know. Well said. Well, I'm going to pivot a little bit here. We're kind of in the final home stretch of the questions that I've just been peppering you with, Schuyler. So I really appreciate your patience here with things. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you are a well-known DJ. You mentioned it a little bit earlier in our conversation. Can you just briefly tell us a bit more about your relationship with music, how it intersects with your whole life as a teacher, runner, coach, all the things?
Vibes. It's just
Yep.
absolute vibes. DJing has been an outlet. Whether I was working in federal service and it was
Hmm.
like, okay, I spend 8 hours a day trying to help people be their best, healthiest self, and then I'm going to go DJ a nightclub setting where people are doing the most ratchet, worst things for themselves, and
Yep.
it's just that balance.
Hmm.
But yeah, music is everything.
Yeah.
It creates a tone. It can turn around a mood.
Hmm.
It connects people. It's a bridge, and
Hmm.
so I'm excited to be able to go out and perform and try to build community in those spaces, and
Hmm.
especially when I get to do it around trail runners, whether
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a festival,
Mhm.
hanging out with Finn and Jules and the
Mhm.
massive running crew in Utah, and like
Mhm.
DJing a finish line, whether that's just connecting in an environment like, hey, I'm gonna bring Jamil out to the club and we're gonna watch him try to be social. That's always highly entertaining. It's just an opportunity
Yeah.
to build that community in a new way,
Mhm.
and see how people move in a different space, literally move in a different space.
Yeah.
It's such a vibe. It's such a good way to just like release that stress and feel that connection without having to do the heavy lifting of saying words with your mouth again.
Yeah. Well said. Okay. Like I mentioned to our listeners, we are recording 2 days before Valentine's Day. So I have to ask you this question. How did you decide or come to writing a column for Ultra Running Magazine that was focused on love and dating advice within the sport of ultra running?
Yeah, honestly, this goes back all the way to high school.
Okay.
This has been a long time coming. So, Hitch, when it first came out, the classic Will Smith,
classic movie,
just Kevin James film, when it came out, friends of mine were like, "Is this movie like you're gonna be your life?" Because I was always that person who's like wheeling and dealing advice or trying to learn. The whole reason I became a psychology major in college was because I was like, I'm gonna study social dynamics. Like this was like right when The Game had come out and like the Pickup Artist was on MTV and like all of that, frankly, not very great things, but like all of that was happening. I was like, let's study this and see if like there's really some backing to this. So that was the whole reason for me being a psych major. And how this officially came to be was I was literally cracking a joke with Jamil about like, listen, you just got to let me in there because we keep hearing these stories about run clubs run amok or how, people are sliding in the DMs and Strava comments. And I was like, you just got to let me come in here and just like clean up the space. And he mentioned it to Amy, and then Amy was like, but actually, is that a thing you want to do? And I was like, it feels like, in How I Met Your Mother, when Barney like gives the playbook. Now that I'm washed up and out the game and married with a child, and like all I can do is try to help others level up their game. I've helped enough people get married at this point where I'm like, let me just give it to the masses, and then I can like say that I've closed that chapter of my life. So
awesome.
The Love Outpost was born.
I love that. I love how you're so good at like taking, like interweaving all of your passions in life and like keeping them a part of your life. I love that. So for our listeners, definitely be sure to check out Schuyler's column called The Love Outpost on Ultra Running Mag. All right, Schuyler, in the final home stretch here, this is my last question for you. Here at Earth Movers, we ask all of our guests this question, and I would love to hear from you. What does being an Earth Mover mean to you? And again, no right or wrong answers with this.
Yeah. And first off, thanks for having me and even in opening this floor.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be an Earth Mover? Honestly, you have to be someone who wants to elevate those around you. And that can be one person. You can have a dyadic relationship where you're like, I want to set this person up better than I found them. It can be a smaller community. It can be the entire world. But functionally, if you want to leave a positive imprint, if you want to be the center of the ripple and have that ripple spread positivity and joy and success and productivity, then you are an Earth Mover. And it doesn't need to be flashy. You don't need to have your name in lights. But if you are doing that positive, intentional, good work, you're an Earth Mover and you are making a change. And if you continue to like grind through the moments where it feels like you're being pushed against or you're not having that impact, if you can continue to do that and find your success story, then own that. Own the fact that you are an Earth Mover. And if you're not there yet or you don't see it yet, find ways to contribute, find ways to spread that ripple effect, because we all can be. And let's just make sure that we're using that for good.
Oh, Schuyler, that was incredible. I so appreciate you sharing that. I deeply appreciate your time and just sharing more about yourself, more about your life. I strongly feel like you are one of those types of people in the trail and ultra running world who like more people should be talking about. So that's why I was really excited to bring you on and have this conversation with you. Again, I'm deeply grateful for all the work that you've been doing in the sport for in many, many years at this point. And I think it's very obvious to myself and all of our listeners just what a privilege your students have, like having, and your student athletes have with you as a mentor and just a role model for them. So congratulations on all of your successes. Wishing you nothing but the best in your future endeavors, whether that's professionally, if you decide to dive back into the trail and ultra running world, But no, again, thank you so much for being here, and we will chat with you soon.
Absolutely. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah.